Now, I'm going to sit here. Okay, now I want you to imagine I'm your teacher in school. If I'm sitting here, show me roughly where would you be sitting if you were in your classroom, roughly? How far? Okay, go and stand there then. Go and stand there. And now, is that about the right distance away? Yeah, okay. And if you had a choice, how far away from your teacher would you be? Would you be nearer or would you be further away in the classroom? You're quite happy there, are you? So when you get into your class every day, you go and sit there and you think, this is a good place for me. Okay. Now, where do you think in Jesus' day, where do you think the people who really wanted to learn from Jesus, where do you think they sat?
Close.
Yeah, come here. Now, I have got my best trainers on, but you sit as close to my feet as possible. So could you just sit down there, just for a minute? Can you get any closer to my feet? Yes. How's the smell of my feet doing? Is it okay? Not too bad. Okay. So this was a sign, if you really wanted to learn from Jesus or anybody else, you wanted the prime position, you sat right by the feet. Now, in those days, they didn't have trainers, did they? No, they didn't. Hadn't invented. What did they wear on their feet then? Sandals. And it was dusty and dirty. So do you know what used to happen? You know how when you come to my house, you take your shoes off when you come inside, in theory, but you take your shoes off, don't you? What happened in Jesus' day in the Middle East? What happened to their feet when you arrived at somebody's house? What did you do to their feet?
Clean it.
Wash them, yeah. So hopefully, if you're sitting at my feet in a house, my feet are nice and clean. But if we're outside, they might be a bit smelly and dirty. But you are so interested in what Jesus wants to say, you sit as close as possible. What was really remarkable, there was a woman called Mary who did that. Now, that might sound not odd to you, because in your school, girls and boys all sit in the same places, don't they? But in those days, women never sat next to men. But Jesus let the girls come and sit close so they could learn too. Now, Jesus didn't always sit down to teach, did he? He often wandered around the country. So, if you still want to learn from me, you can stand up. Thank you very much indeed. You've just dropped some money. Very important to keep every penny. Now, I am going to go... let's imagine we're going to go up a mountain down the middle of the church, actually. So I want you to try and imagine you're not here in Croydon. You're with Jesus. You really want to learn. You've been sitting by my feet in this house where we've been teaching, or underneath the shade of a nice tree. But now Jesus is moving on. How do you think you will follow Jesus? So I'm going to start pretending I'm Jesus and moving, and I want you to follow me in the way you think you would, because you want to hear more, okay? So here I'm talking. Can you hear what I'm saying? Come a bit nearer then. Can you hear me? A bit nearer maybe? Okay, so what you would do, you're going to be Jesus now and I'm going to be the disciple. So you walk back to the seat and I'll show you. Be right beside you. My feet would be almost in your footsteps, okay? I'd almost be tripping you over. And it's dusty on the road, and the dust will be getting up everywhere, and I'd be choking on it. But I wanted to be near you to hear from you, okay? And there's a phrase that says about the dust of the sandals of your rabbi on your feet. So that if you came home one day and your feet were very dusty, you could say, Mum, that's okay. That's the dust of, what's your teacher at school called?
Miss Chambers.
Miss Chilby.
Miss Chambers.
Miss Chambers. So you can say, that's okay, Mum. That's the dust from Miss Chambers' feet. I've been learning from her very carefully today, so don't worry about me being dirty, okay? All right, is that right, Deborah? If he comes home grubby, it's because he's been sticking close to Miss Chambers' teaching. So you'd stick really close to Jesus, which means you get the dust off his feet, you get the smell of his feet, but you stick close because you want to hear every word he says. That's what it means to be a disciple. In school, are you called disciples? No, what are you called?
Students.
Students, I like that word. It used to be pupils, which I don't really like that word because that makes me think of something else. But students, I think it's a really good word because you're studying. But the word in Jesus' day, in his language actually, was also student, but it was disciple. So discipleship was marked by getting quite dirty feet and lots of dust. Okay? Let's just pray. Thank you, Lord Jesus, that we can follow you closely and that we can have the marks of your life on our life. And I just pray for all of us here, whether we're students or not in our daily living, that we would all be good students, all good disciples, sticking close to you, hanging on everything you say. Amen.